Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We'll be starting just shortly, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa atba'ihi ila yawmiddin. Allahumma faqihna fid din wa alimna at-ta'wil wa alhimna bi faydi fadlika rushdana ya Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah, we began last week in our exploration of the essentials of Arabic grammar, in which we are looking at the Ajrumiyya, this fundamental, essential primer of Arabic grammar. In last class, we explored some of the background relating to the text and the benefit of the study of the text, and also the purpose of the study of Arabic grammar, which ultimately, functionally, is that it is Arabic is al-ilmu biqawa'id, its knowledge of principles, which, if upheld, protect the tongue from errors in speech, and which, if upheld, protect the mind from errors in understanding. So that is the benefit of Arabic. And we saw the related aspects, right? So we saw this definition of why we study Arabic. That it's al-ilmu biqawa'id يحفظ علم يحفظ مراعاته اللسان. It's a science which, if upheld, it protects the tongue from errors in speech and the mind from errors in understanding. And this is why paying attention to applying these rules is very important. That's why, we both study the rules, but we also need to take the means to apply the rules. And as we progress through the text, especially when we come to the what's called alamatul i'rab, the signs of the different states of the different grammatical states of that words are in, the active practice is very useful. There's a number of resources that this week you'll find on the course page. These will help you apply the rules, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So we saw this definition of Arabic, and now today we're going to begin with the author's opening. And the Imam Ibn Ajrum says, Babul Kalam, the chapter on speech. The logical thing would appear to be to first define the word before one talks about kalam, which is speech. And speech in Arabic happens through sentences. In modern Arabic, you primarily refer to as the jumla, the statement. But the unit of analysis of nahw, of the science of grammar, is the statement. Is the statement. So he defines the statement rather than defining the word. So he says babul kalam, right? The chapter on speech, right? Or the chapter on statements. And this, of course, goes back to the purpose of speech. What is the purpose of speech? Is to convey a meaning. Right? The purpose of language, actually, is to convey a complete meaning. Why? Because we speak, right? To communicate complete meanings. And if we understand the human being as being a rational animal, we would only speak in complete and sound meanings. Right? We'd only speak in complete and sound meanings. Right? Imagine if I said to you, "What is your?" and stopped. I said, "How are?" and I didn't finish it. Now we anticipate something is coming, but this is not rational speech, in that the human being a rational animal, would speak in a complete and sound statement. Now, it is the nature of the Arabic language, and this is part of the wisdom why it is the language of revelation, that it revolves around these, complete and sound expression, and then it is completed by eloquence. It is completed by eloquence, which is the science of balagha. So it's not just complete and sound, but it is eloquent. So he says, Babul Kalam, Al-Kalamu huwa al-lafzu al-murakkabu al-mufidu bil-wada'. So kalam, a complete statement is words that come together. Murakkab, al-mufid bil-wada'. That convey benefit bil-wada'. Bil-wada' is in the usage of the Arabs. So there are 3 or 4 ways it's broken down, right? That al-lafzu huwa al-kalam, speech, meaning a complete statement, is the words, al-lafz, al-murakkab, that is composite, that comes together. Al-mufid, that conveys a meaning. Bil-wada', in the usage of the Arabs. So we can break it down as follows, right? That there are 4 elements to the complete statement. There are 4 elements to the complete statement. The first is the lafz. Now the lafz in Arabic, lafz, right? Arabic is an amazing language, and it's almost as if, it is revealed, not just merely conventional. Right? Lafz, lafadha, is that which comes out from the mouth. So in the language, when we say, you can say, for example, lafadhtu tamr. I threw out the, oh, لفظت النواة. I threw out the date pit. Because you threw it from the stomach, from the mouth. So it's that which comes out from the mouth. But of course, lafz refers to that which is uttered by the mouth, but it refers to the word. That which is, because that's what intelligibly comes out from the mouth. Because you go say, oh, but that's not, that's not, we're talking about human beings. So there's an assumption of rationality in human expression. Right? And if you want to follow along, if you are able to follow along in the commentary, the Tuhfa Saniyya, it gives you a definition of the lafz. But the lafz is the word, and words are sounds that have come together to convey a meaning. Right? Because words, they're sounds, which are made up of the letters of the alphabet, but you could say something like days in Arabic. Dal, ya, za doesn't have a meaning. So that's not a lafz. We're talking about words that are used. Lafz. But in order for it to be a complete statement, if you just say ja'a, no meaning is understood. So for a statement to be complete, it has a second aspect, which is murakkab, right? Which is composite, coming together. Murakkab, this form is interesting because murakkab, rakiba is for one thing to be on top of another. So you can say, for example, rakibtul faras, I rode the horse. Rakibtu. But rakkaba is to put one thing on top of the other. Okay? So murakkab, that has been put together. Right? So you say, ja'a zaydun. Zayd has come. Two words come together. Now you understand a complete meaning. Ja'a zaydun. Zayd has come. So that's this meaning of it being murakkab. Third is al-mufid. Right? Al-mufid, that conveys a meaning. That conveys a meaning. And a meaning is understood such that the listener understands a meaning such that they are not expecting more to be said. You can say a lot of things. And if you, for example, if you say, إن دخل الرجل في الدار وجلس على الكرسي, he said, if the man, إن دخل الرجل, if the man enters the house and sits on the chair, you said a lot of things. Is that a complete statement? No. Because you're waiting for something. You made a condition saying, if you're expecting, then something. So you say, فَأَكْرِمْهُ, so honor them. Now, are you expecting any more? No. Right? So this is why al-mufid. And then bil-wada', this has more than one interpretation, but bil-wada' is by the usage of the Arabs. Because what are we talking about? Arabic grammar. So if you asked a grammarian, what is the i'rab of to be or not to be? What's the i'rab of to be or not to be? He said, they'll say, no i'rab shall be, right? It's not Arabic, so please go to the Department of English Grammar, right? I have nothing to analyze. So we're talking about Arabic grammar, so the wada' is placement, right? You say wada'tu al-qalam, I placed the pen ala tawila, on the table. So the wada' here refers to bil-wada' ay bi-wada' al-arab, according to the usage of the Arabs. So this is a statement. This is quite a long definition, but Ibn Ajurrum does this deliberately in order to break down the component elements of the complete statement. Right? He breaks it down in these 4 steps. It's the words that come together to convey a complete meaning by the usage of the Arabs. It can be said more briefly. It can be said more briefly. So some of the grammarians defined the kalam, like the complete statement, as being qawlun mufid, a statement that conveys a complete meaning. You define it in 2. But what's a statement then? So you have to break it down. That the statement would be al-alfadh al-murakkaba. And it being in Arabic is understood by the context. But for the purpose of teaching, and we'll see this throughout the Ajrumiyya, the author breaks down things because at the level of beginning, the focus isn't simply on precision. The focus is on clarity. So he breaks it down. We'll see later in the text that there are places where the author doesn't give us a rigorous definition of certain things. Why? Because the purpose isn't to be precise, it's to be clear. Okay, so that's the complete statement. This has a practical purpose too, which is that strive when you speak to speak in statements. And if you are a learner of a language, don't speak until you have a complete statement in mind. You want to sound proper when you speak. Don't put together words. And Arabic doesn't work like that. It's like, in English, if you say, house came the dog. Most people will get the fact. It'll be obvious. It means the dog came to the house, right? But you can kind of throw things together and it'll make sense. In Arabic, it won't make sense. Because Arabic's very exacting when it comes to the grammar. So what do? Sometimes, especially for us who are learning the language, you are tempted to jump into it. Say, dakhala ar-rajul, and you still have to break down the grammar of it. Ar-rajulu fi, you have to think house, al-bayti. No, just think about it, break it down in your mind, and then just say it. Dakhala ar-rajulu fil bayti. Dakhala ar-rajulu fil bayti. So you break it down and then say it. And that's intelligent speech. It's sound speech. And even if you're reading a text, and inshallah, as you pursue the Islamic sciences, when you are asked to read, sometimes we're nervous, we want to speak quickly. No. Yeah. You start off in first gear. If you have driven stick shift, then you go into second gear. But when you're in a residential area, you don't go into fourth and fifth gear anyways. So in the neighborhood of study, just keep it in first, second, and third gear at best. But you're not sure, just stick to second gear. No need to go fast. You're a learner. You got an L sign on you anyways. The teacher doesn't expect you to go fast. And there's no prize for going fast. Okay. So that's kalam. Then he tells us, wa aqsamuhu thalatha. The parts of speech are 3. Ismun wa fi'lun wa harfun ja'a li ma'na. So aqsamuhu, the building blocks of a sentence, a complete statement, are three types of words. These are not the types of sentence, right? The aqsam, its parts, here parts, aqsam, refers to the building blocks from which a sentence can be made up. The building blocks from which a sentence can be made up. Because you could say that kalam happens through a jumla, kalam happens through a complete statement, and the jumla is either jumla ismiya or jumla fi'liya. That's not the types of kalam that we're talking about. Here, aqsam, types, refers to, and that's what some translators just plug in words. But when you translate, you have to look at what does it mean. So, aqsamuhu, statements are made up of three types of word. Right? So in reality, this is a classification of words. Right? That statements are made up of kalimat. Right? Statements are made of kalima. Kalimat, plural of kalima. And the kalimat are of three types. The kalimat, the types of words are three, which are ismun wa fi'lun wa harfun ja'a li ma'na. So sentence, the kalam, you'll only find in a statement one of three types of kalima. It is, by the classification of the Arabs, either an ism, which is a noun, right? Which are nouns or names of, and the fi'l, a verb or particles, harf. And each of these have a meaning and they have signs. Have a meaning and have a sign. So an ism, the meaning of an ism is ما دل على المعنى في نفسه غير مقترن بزمن وضعا. And if you look in the Tuhfa Saniyya or any commentary, they give you these definitions. The ism is that which indicates a meaning in of itself. So when you say the word, it indicates a meaning. So someone says tufaha, it indicates a type of fruit. Or you say Jack. Well, no, don't say Jack, because the Arabs will say, what do you mean by Jack? Let's say you say Zubair. It indicates a person thus named. And that in itself, the ism in itself is not connected to time. It's not connected to time. Tufaha, apple, does it refer to the past, present, or future? Not connected to that. As opposed to the fi'l. As opposed to the fi'l. Now the fi'l, which we could refer to as a verb, is ما دل على حدث. Fi'l indicates an action. مقترن بإحدى الأزمنة الثلاثة. It indicates an action connected to one of three possible times, which are past, present, or future. Past, ماضي, present, مضارع or حال, and future, مستقبل. And a harf, he says, وَحَرْفٌ جَاءَ لِمَعْنَى, and particles that have come for meaning, because the harf, the particles, bring out meanings in other than themselves. like the huruf. So for example, if you say ba, fi, min, now min indicates a meaning, has a range of meanings. The primary meaning of min is from. It indicates ibtida, beginning. But it indicates that meaning not in itself, it indicates it in something else. So you say, ذهبت من دمشق إلى to Amman, to Amman. So min indicates a meaning in something else. So it's not without meaning, but the meaning, so an apple, what is an apple? It indicates a meaning in itself. The ism indicates an action connected with time. The fi'l indicates a meaning in other than it. So you say ala, it indicates isti'la, one thing being above another. But you just say ala, doesn't indicate. But you can say that al-qalamu ala tawila. So ala indicates a meaning, but not in itself, in other than it. And the huruf are brilliant because they bring out meanings. And we'll be talking later about huruf. Now each of these three, now a lot could be said about them, but we won't go too much into it. However, ism, there's a great debate between the grammarians that what comes first, the ism or the fi'l. And it's a fascinating discussion. But ism in Arabic comes from wasama, which is, and then there's a way it becomes an ism, but ism refers to a sign, because the name is what gives something a signification. There's a type of something, you can't tell what it is. You say apple, because it could have been, like some apples are so red, it almost looks like a tomato. So the name brings out what it is. And the fi'l, right? Now there's different types of ism, right? And those are discussed. But broadly, anything, there's names. You can have names of things. The names can be explicit. In Arabic, there's a lot of use of the damir, right? Like for example, you say دخل زيد ثم جلس, right? جاء زيد, Zayd came. They say ثم جلس, then sat. There's an ism there that's unstated. When you say ثم جلس, where's the fi'l? Where's the fa'il? Yeah. It's huwa, right? But the huwa is an ism. It's not even mentioned. It's not mentioned. جاء زيد ثم جلس, meaning huwa. So huwa, right? These are called damir, right? You say ضربته, I hit him, right? ضربtu and the hu, these are all also types of ism. Okay. But how do we tell if something is an ism or a fi'l? We tell between them according to their signs. We tell them in accordance with their signs. So he says, فالاسم يعرف بالخفض والتنوين ودخول الألف واللام وحروف الخفض وهي من وإلى وعن وعلى وفي ورب والباء والكاف واللام وحروف القسم. And you can say it in two ways. حروف القسم وحروف القسم وهي الواو والباء والتاء. Okay, so how is an ism known? There's two ways to know something. You can know something either by its reality or by its signs. Right? So an ism. You say Zayd is an ism. One, you can say, okay, Zayd refers to that guy. So it's an ism. That's knowing something by its reality. The other way you can know something is by its signs. Because sometimes you read something, you don't know what, is this an ism or is it a fi'l? So you look at the signs. And these signs are exclusive. So the signs of the ism don't occur to the fi'l. The signs of the fi'l don't occur to the ism. And we won't get into confusing things, but there's certain words that the Arabs differed. Are they an ism or are they a fi'l? And they said, well, there's agreed upon signs of an ism so this thing is an ism then. And there's certain verbs that kind of, they almost have like an identity crisis, but they're verbs. And they, in Mutamit Ajrumiyya, it says there's 4. Ni'ma wa bi'sa wa asa wa laysa, I think, or something. There's 4. Why? Because they fulfill some of the signs of the fi'l. So the ism is known by 4 things. Al-khafd, right? Khafd, which is also called al-jar. There are 2 great schools of Arabic grammar. In classical Arabic grammar, there's the Basris and the Kufis. And they used to have fights. They were looking for the grammatical truth. But they disagreed. But innocent fight, they throw ink pots at each other, etc. Not often, but it did happen. But all human beings fight. So the Kufans and the Basrans, they're 2 great schools, produce great imams of grammar, but the Basrans prevailed. And they differed on terminology, but also in some of their grammatical analysis of things. So the Kufans refer to it as jar. Jar. The Basrans refer to it as jar. The Kufans use the term khafd, right, which is in English called the genitive case. Khafada is to lower something. And the sign of the khafd, the primary sign, is the kasra. Right? Now, Ibn Ajrum is a much later scholar, so the assumption would have been he would say jar. Why did he say khafd? Because, well, one, because both terms remained. Some said because he's pointing to a spiritual meaning. That's a bit ambitious, but it's cool. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the believers to, commanded the beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ, lower your wing for those who follow you of the believers. And we're told to lower our wings of humility to our parents. Whereas jar just means to drag. That's an ambitious explanation. He just chose one term. Okay, so that's khafd. So, for, khafd is, for example, if an ism has if something is in a state of khafd. So, for example, you say, Rabbul Bayti. So, Rabbul Bayti, it's in a state of khafd. There's a kasra there, an explicit kasra. So, Bayt is necessarily an ism. Why? Because it has it's in a state of khafd. How do you tell khafd? We'll be looking at that next chapter. Or tanween. Tanween, which is like when you say, جاء رجل, a man came. Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Muhammad is an ism. Why? Because it has tanween on it. One of the grammarians whose beloved would not accept him, he said, كأنك تنوين وأنا ألف. Okay? It's as if I'm tanween and you're the alif or the lam. Wanti lamun. Right? That is if I'm tanween and you're the alif. Wherever I'm found, you are absent. Because tanween, right? You can't say al-baytun. Because if you have alif and lam, you don't have tanween. Because tanween, general, the most common usage of the tanween is that it indicates the indefinite. Rajulun, a man, as opposed to ar-rajulu, the man. But there are 4 types of tanween. We're not going to get into them here. You can see them in the Tuhfa Saniyya. So the tanween. And the dukhulul alifi wal lam. The entering of the alif and lam. So you say al-muslimu. Right? Al-muslimu. Muslim is an ism because it has the alif and lam. Wa huruf al-khafd. And the entering of the letters of khafd into something indicates that that word that has been preceded by one of these huruf al-khafd is an ism. And these are min, wa ila, wa an, wa ala, wa fi, wa rubba, wal ba'u, wal kaf, wal lam. So these, right, min wa ila, these are worth spending your time on because each of them has many meanings. And the huruf al-jar, the huruf in general, are so significant in the books of usul al-fiqh. There is a chapter dedicated to the huruf. Why? Because a lot of legal rulings are dependent on how you analyze what is the primary meaning of particular huruf and what is the second meaning and what is the third meaning, what is the fourth meaning. So that in particular hadiths, what is the primary meaning here? A lot of time it depends on that for legal rulings, but it also has significance with respect to why, for example, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses particular letters and not others. Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi says the meanings of the Quran are highlighted through the huruf. Right? And they contain they're pregnant with meaning. So min, so anything that is preceded by min, it indicates that it is an ism. So min, the primary meaning of min is ibtida, is beginning. Wa ila, whose primary meaning is intiha, end. Right? So you say, dhahabtu, right? I went mina ila Arafat. I went from Mina ila Arafat. This would indicate that Mina and Arafat are both ism because they contain one of the signs of the ism. Wa ala, which has the meaning of isti'la, of one thing being above the other. But it has other meanings as well. It has other meanings. So ala can also mean condition in certain contexts. For example, in the story of Al-Khadir and Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. In the Quran, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam says to Al-Khadir, هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني? May I follow you? على أن تعلمني, on condition that you teach me. مِمَّا عُلِّمْتَ رُشْدًا, of what you have been taught of right guidance. So there it's not, doesn't have, ala does not have the meaning of above, has the meaning of a condition. But the practical thing here is ala, what it comes upon is an ism. Wafi, whose primary meaning is zarfiyya, for one thing to be in another. Warubba. Rubba is used either for something being rare or it being common. You say, Rubba yajudul bakhil. It has a sense of may. Right? The stingy might be generous, might be giving, but meaning likely not. Rubba. But practically, Rubba, right? And it, but here the Rubba, this is Rubba rajulin yukrimuni. This has particular usage. Rubba is a little problematic too, but Rubba, if it's found, walba, right? Walba, the ba, like in Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. What comes after the ba is an ism. And the ba has several meanings. The ba can indicate the means. And you say, مسحت الطاولة بيدي. Right? I wipe the table with my hand. So the ba enters upon, this is what's called, it's an instrumental ba. Or it's for accompaniment, musahaba. Meaning with, right? أتيت بالأمير. I came بالأمير أي مع الأمير. Has a meaning of withness. It also can be used for musahaba. Right? There's a musahaba. And there's other meanings as well. There's other meanings as well. So ba. Or wal kaf. Right? The wal kaf, the kaf, which is used for similitude. A is like B. We say Zaydun kal asadi. So the practical thing here is that if something is preceded by this kaf, it is an ism. That's a practical consideration. The kaf is used for tashbih, one thing being like another. Now we're just looking right now at the signs of the ism, but the kaf, the important thing with the kaf is that when you say A is like B, you have to keep in mind in what way. Because if you say Zaydun kal asadi, Zayd is like a lion, does it mean he's going to eat you? No. Right? In comparison, there is a point of comparison. So you have to keep that in mind. And implicitly, it's a bigger statement. Zaydun kal asadi fi shaja'atihi, for example, in his courage. Doesn't mean that he's very hairy. Doesn't mean he walks on 4 legs. Doesn't mean he's going to eat you. There's a point of comparison. And the Arabs had a field day in this because they sometimes compared someone to something else, but they're trying to convey secondary meanings by it as well. Okay, that's the kaf. Wallam. Right? Right? So, for example, Lillahi mulku samawati wal ard. The lam, if it enters on something, it's sign that is an ism. But this gets tricky because there are certain lams that enter into fi'l as well. But a lam like lillahi, right? Or, yeah. So and then you have the huruf al-qasam. These are the Arabs swore primarily through the use of three letters, the waw, the ba, and the ta. And each of these have a range of usages. All three you can use with respect to the divine name Allah. So you can say wallahi, billahi, and tallahi. There's secondary ways that qasam is done as well, but these are the huruf al-qasam. If they're found, what's after that is an ism. We can only swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that is a religious and legal issue, not an issue of Arabic. The Arabs would swear by other things as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, swears in the Quran by His creation, because it's His creation. But we cannot. وَالضُّحَى, right? وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, etc. There's so many things. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the human self. And He swears by how He fashioned it. But each of those wows in the Quran, and a lot of them are in surah, in the 30th juz of the Quran, it indicates that what is after it is an ism. Of course, it gets tricky because the waw is found for other reasons too. The waw is not an exclusive sign. The waw is also used just for atf. The primary use of waw is for conjunction. Ja'a Zaydun wa Amr. Zayd and Amr came. But in certain contexts, it is used that. So the waw could be for qasam, for swearing. But the waw could also be to put two things in conjunction. And so it's specifically the waw, the ba, and the ta, if it is as a harf qasam, for an oath, that it is. These are the huruf al-khafd. Now, if some of these are strange right now, don't stress, because there's no reward for stressing. You say, okay, I understand this conceptually. I might not be able to confidently use these, but what happens is sometimes it's obvious from the context. Or there's a sentence begins by a waw and Allah, but they put tashkil and there's a kasra. Oh, because when there's a qasam, where there's a swearing, what is being sworn by has this, because it's a type of khafd. Right? So, washamsi, for example, right? You see, but often there's other signs too. Like washamsi, ash-shams is an ism. Why? It also has the alif and lam. Sometimes there's other signs. That's why also a dictionary helps. A dictionary helps. So these are signs by which an ism is known. And then he tells us, وَالْفِعْلُ يُعْرَفُ بِقَدْ وَالسِّينِ وَسَوْفَ وَتَاءِ التَّأْنِيثِ السَّاكِنَةِ. So the fi'l is known by qad. And qad, right? Qad is either used for confirmation or for making something far-fetched. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, for example. Okay. So now we have in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The qad, what kind of word does it enter upon? The fi'l. Right? It's a sign of the fi'l because the qad enters upon the fi'l. That's why it's a sign. A sign is that which distinguishes one thing from another. So the signs of the fi'l don't enter upon the ism, broadly speaking, right? So the qad, if you find qad in something, means what's after it is a fi'l. Like قد أفلح المؤمنون. So you know أفلح is a fi'l. Or قد يجود البخيل. That the stingy person may be giving. So the qad indicates that yajud is a fi'l. There's other signs of the fi'l. It looks like a fi'l. And then seen and sofa. Waseen wa sofa. Seen and sofa are two things that enter upon a fi'l to put it into the past, into the future. And sofa puts it further into the future, according to most grammarians. Right? So if you say, someone's sitting in their car, so you say, do you tell them to come in? So you say, adkhulu. I am entering, would indicate now or shortly. We say, sa'adkhulu, I will. It puts it further in the future. You shouldn't anticipate them coming right away. But if you were to say, sawfa adkhul, I will later enter. So it indicates further entering. But it can have other rhetorical purposes as well. And that's seen and sofa. But seen and sofa only enter upon the fi'l. So you won't have sazaydun. It doesn't have any meaning. Right? Seen and sofa. And ta at-ta'nith as-sakina, this is the female ta. So, for example, in some cases, jalasat, for example. Jalasa for the man, jalasat for the woman. This ta that comes at the end of a fi'l, and it's sakina because it's got a sukoon at the end. So jalasat, darabat, etc. And if you find a ta, ta'nith sakina, so word, you can see the three roots, but there's a ta, it's a silent ta afterwards. You know that word is a fi'l. So these are the signs of the fi'l. And then, of course, and then he says, وَالْحَرْفُ مَا لَا يَصْلُحُ مَعَهُ دَلِيلُ الْإِسْمِ وَلَا دَلِيلُ الْفِعْلِ. As for the harf, it does not accept any of the signs of the ism, nor any of the signs of the fi'l. That's the harf. So its sign is the absence of signs, basically. So that's his introduction on a few things. He's defined for us, firstly, what has he done for us here? First, he tells us about the definition of kalam, right, of the complete statement. Then he tells us it has there's three types of words that constitute a sentence. Right? These are types of kalima, but what kalam, what a jumla, the building blocks of the jumla are only three things. And then what are the signs by which each of these is known? This you would do well. In the course we have shared the text of the Ajrumiyya. It is very useful to diagram. It's to diagram. We've, in the lesson, given functional definitions of each. If you have some exposure to Arabic, you will do well to write down the definitions, if you like, from the Tuhfa Saniyya. You can ignore other things in the Tuhfa Saniyya. He not only explains the text, but he goes into some explanatory details. But the role of commentaries is to clarify. It's not an act of worship. I read the commentary. But sometimes it's useful. If you want to look for an example, look for a definition, it's useful. And the signs, some of them initially can be tricky. But at the very least, it's good to map them out. These are what they are. And we'll see further. We've also shared, of course, the definitions of the ism, that which it indicates a meaning in itself. The fi'l, which indicates an act connected to one of the three time periods. And then the harf, which brings out meaning in other than it. And we saw the signs of these. So that's the opening. And then we'll go in the next lesson to Babul I'rab, the chapter on grammatical analysis. And that gives us how one expresses these meanings, right? And how one analyzes a sentence. And we'll just close the people of presence with Allah found spiritual meaning in everything. One of the great scholars of North Africa, Ibn Ajiba, he wrote a great commentary on the Ajrumiyya. At the end of each subsection, he shares some spiritual meanings. So we'll just mention. So he says that Al-Kalam said statements that are of consequence with Allah. Human affirmations of consequence with Allah are one of three types. Right? He said there's the ism, right? Which is to mention the name of Allah by engaging in the remembrance of Allah. Like if you want to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's three types of statement that you must make in your life. The first is ism, which is وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. Mention the name of your Lord. Remember Allah. The second is the fi'l, the action, and the action that will draw you close to Allah is mujahadatun nafs, is to strive against your lower self. That's the consequent action. You can run here, you can run there, but you can't run away from yourself. Rather, you must oppose yourself to get to Allah. And the harf is taking the means. Right? It's taking the means. But once you reach Allah, you have to realize that it is not the means that will get you to Allah. And you have to make hadf of the harf. Then you have to realize that it is even the means is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Or that the harf is the ba. The harf is the ba, which is that whatever you do, your remembrance, your mujahada, your striving, must be billah. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. My facilitation, my success is only by Allah. Right? La hawla wa la quwwa. There's no ability nor power illa, except by Allah. Illa billah. That is the reality of. But that's just an incidental thing to get us thinking, because in everything, for the one who reflects, are signs, right? Pointing to higher meanings. And this is something realized even by the early scholars, which is the reality that just as there is a grammar of the tongue, right? And Imam al-Qushayri referred to that as the lesser grammar, the grammar of the tongue. And it's a lesser grammar because if you make mistakes, right? If you say ja'a zaydan, right? Or marartu bi rajulun, you make mistakes in speaking. Now an Arab will be shocked. You say, what an ignorant person, right? And the Arabs didn't used to make mistakes in their speech. But there's no accountability on the Day of Judgment for that. But there's a grammar of the heart. There's a grammar of the heart, which if you err in, you're accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Imam al-Qushayri wrote a book called Nahw al-Qulub, the grammar of the heart. And he structured it like the books of grammar, but he's talking about, he's taking spiritual meanings from Arabic grammar. But we won't mention that throughout, but here and there we'll mention, right? So the statements that matter with Allah is remembrance, dhikr is that's the ism. Number 2 is the fi'l, which is to strive against yourself. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. And those who strive in us, i.e. lana, right, for us, we shall surely guide to the many pathways to us. And there's a reason why when the basic usage would be وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا لَنَا مِنْ أَجْلِنَا, right? But why does it say fina? Literally in us, but that's not what is meant. Because it's meant to convey 3 meanings, which is lana, wa bina, wa ma'ana. For us, by us, with us. We shall surely guide to the pathways to us. And the harf, which is taking the means reliant upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Billahi. That whatever you do it by Allah. Even the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you do it by Allah. Iyaka na'bud wa iyaka nasta'in. It is you we are humbly devoted to, and it is you that we rely upon. So we just wanted to make that as a brief reminder. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Next class will continue from here. If this is the first time you're attending, if you register in the class, which is free of course, you will have access to the slides, but also the related class resources. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Any questions before we stop, inshallah? So there's a question that could you give some examples for harf? We gave a number of them. Harfs like the ba, for example, or the other, the huruf al-khafd, they're all huruf. Min, ila, an, ala, etc. And any other questions? Okay. There's a question that how do we benefit from this class? Well, be attentive. Right? One of the things is never start anything unless you intend to finish it. And once you start, of course, you don't have to. You can go do something that you find more beneficial. But the basis is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لا تبطلوا أعمالكم. Do not render your actions vain. So if you begin something, finish it. And that's one of the basic things in life, right? It's stick-with-itness. If you begin something, finish it. A lot of people, when I was in Damascus in 97, Imam Zayd Shakir was there, and one of the most common questions a student, and it was quite fashionable to go to Damascus those years, and when people still could. So one of the questions people used to like to ask was, what's the best textbook for Arabic grammar? So Imam Zayd's stock answer was, the best textbook or best course of Arabic grammar is the one you begin in the beginning and you end at the end. And you stick with it till you finished it. Right? And that would be the advice of all the scholars. If you begin something, finish it. If you think something is better, finish this, then do that. That's a basic thing that applies to anything. But the Ajrumiyya is a tested way to begin Arabic. You can supplement it by reading. You can supplement it by courses on learning Arabic. And we have the Learning Arabic curriculum at Seekers where that would be helpful depending on your level. But grammar itself is extremely beneficial. Grammar itself is extremely beneficial and would benefit a lot of modern Arabs too, because a lot of, depends where you are. Some countries pay more attention to grammar than others, but in order to deeply understand the Quran, you need to have sharp understanding of nahw, of sarf, and of balagha. Otherwise, you don't have the tools yourself for full appreciation of the Quran. You're also privy to misinterpretation. But also, if you don't study the sciences of Arabic, you're cut off from the great tradition of tafsir. Because the scholars of tafsir write for educated people. So you open a great book of tafsir, the great ulama of tafsir will tell you, because if you want to learn the Quran, there's a door to it, which is lugha. You need to have strong knowledge of Arabic, because Arabic, the Quran came bilisanin arabiyyin mubin, in an Arabic tongue that is clear and that conveys clear meanings. But that clarity is found through these sciences of nahw, sarf, and balagh. Of course, you can have a faith reflection on whatever. Right? Someone went and fought with their mother and then had an argument with their father and then told their friends where to go in the hereafter, and then went stole something from the supermarket, and then they read something in the Quran about Ad and Thamud. He says, okay, this is telling me to repent. That's just your own reflection. That's not what the verses were talking about. Right? So you need these sciences. But what do the books of tafsir say? They'll just tell you this wow is such and such type of wow. Okay. And they leave it to you. Okay, if this wow is such and such type of wow, then the meaning would be this. Or it is wow of isti'naf. So it's a new sentence. So then the meaning of the verse would be different. And there's even theological differences that arise from where, like what kind of wow is this? One example from the opening of Surah Al-Imran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُوَ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ. It is He who has sent down upon you the book. مِنْهُ آيَاتٌ مُحْكَمَاتٌ هُنَّ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. In it are decisive verses that are the foundation of the book. وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٌ. And you can read that. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. None knows its ultimate meaning but Allah. If you say that the wow after that is a wow for pause, right? So it's a new statement. وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّ بِهِ. And those firm-footed in knowledge say, we believe in it. It is all from our Lord. If that wow is for isti'naf, it means only the ultimate meaning is only known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you say no, this wow is lil'atf, it's not for isti'naf, it would mean وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ. None knows the interpretation of the unclear verses. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. None knows its ultimate meaning except Allah and those firm-footed in knowledge. Meaning, the common person doesn't know its meaning, but the people of knowledge do. And these are both possibilities from the verse. And of course, it requires understanding of Arabic. So here, this is we'll share the verse in a second, just to have it. That's an example where just what kind of wow is this leads to differences, right? That can the ulama interpret the mutashabih verses or not? Right? This is here, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُوَ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ. Over here, right? Can you see that? Sorry. وَمَا وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Is the waqf necessarily there? Is this wow over here of isti'naf, starting afresh? So no one knows its ultimate meaning but Allah. As for, so here it would mean, as for those firm-footed in knowledge, they say, يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّ بِهِ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ الرَّبِّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا. But it's also possible, and the Salaf differed on this, no one knows its meaning except Allah and those firmly footed in knowledge. So what kind of wow is this? Shifts the meaning, right? And then that would affect what this jumla is as well. يَقُولُونَ, no one knows its ultimate meaning but Allah and those firm-footed in knowledge, whose state is that they say, we believe in all of it, they are all from Allah. وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. And none take heed except those of deep understanding. That's, for your reference, that's Surah Ali Imran, verse 7. Right? First, we give the explanation of the theological, the belief implications of that verse in our courses on Islamic beliefs. There's a question, will memorizing the matn help us in advanced books of grammar? Yes. Shaykh Hamza, years ago, like this mid-90s, early, like 94 or something, heard Shaykh Hamza Yusuf say that all that you need to know about Arabic grammar is found in the Ajrumiyya. Like, yeah, it's a basic book. How could that be true? But, okay, maybe. But it's true. Right? Everything beyond the Ajrumiyya is details. Now you need to know the details. Right? Like a tree without its branches is a tree. A tree without its fruits is a tree. But it's not complete. Right? But the core grammatical rules are all, or nearly all, found in the Ajrumiyya. A lot of people say, I'm studying the Alfiya, I'm studying this, I read Sharh ibn Aqil. But you ask them, okay, what types of exception are there in Arabic? Illa, how does it work? They don't know. And that's not something you need to have studied the big books. The small books are sufficient. Other things. What's the difference between hal and tamyiz? Right? You don't need Sharh Shudur al-Dhahab for that. It's right there in the Ajrumiyya. You know the definition of hal, you know the definition of tamyiz, put them together. What do they share? What's different? That's, so the nuances, everybody can parrot a definition of kalam. Actually, the later books' definitions are easier than that. Right? So the ulama say, "Man atqana al-mutun nal al-funun." Whoever masters the primers attains knowledge of the sciences. وَمَنْ قَرَأَ الْحَوَاشِي. And whoever reads the big books without mastering the basics, فَمَا حَوَاشِي. They did not encompass anything. And I was recently talking to a senior specialist of the Arabic language, our incoming director of the Arabic language program here at Seekers Guidance. And he was saying, our mastering Arabic courses said a lot of university professors of Arabic, of teaching Arabic as second language, need those courses. Why? Because they know how to teach Arabic as second language. What I call the MBA, Modern Bid'ah Arabic, right? Because it's not classical Arabic, but it's an MBA, it's Modern Bid'ah Arabic. You kind of need it to talk to people, understand what Al Jazeera is going on about. But it's not classical Arabic, won't really help you much with the Quran. Besides, it's a shared language. Right? It's like trying to learn Shakespeare by going to a basketball game. Okay? You pick up some shared vocabulary, but this has one concern, that has another. Right? So if you want to learn classical Arabic, go to its sources. So this is a problem. You find commonly, and they know how to teach Arabic as a second language, but that's generally modern Arabic. It has its usage. And And of course, if you want to learn Arabic as a second language, try to find teachers who've come from the side of Islamic studies or classical grammar while specialized in teaching Arabic as a second language, as opposed to those who come from the faculty of letters, Kulliyat al-Adab, who look at modern Arabic and modern literature and modern linguistics and modern this. Because particularly from the early 20th century, there's been a divorcing of Muslim societies across the Arab world and also in other places from classical Arabic, because that cuts them off from their own civilization. Not just the Arabs, but also others. The language of the educated in India, in Pakistan, was Arabic. And Persian, of course. Right? So some of the Persian scholars say Persian is also from the language of heaven. But so memorizing texts, that's the classical way of our ummah in retaining knowledge. Knowledge is what remains, not what was studied. Nobody cares what you studied. What matters is what do you know. Right? Besides getting a standing ovation, so I studied Alfiyat ibn Malik, good for you. But a lot of people study is like tourism. I went to Italy, great. I saw the Colosseum. Who built it? But do you know anything about it? No. It looks cool. How come it broke down? How come it's in bad shape? So it's just tourism. People go through knowledge. Oh, we did this. Who authored the book? No. What is it talking about? What are the most important points? Right? One really doesn't know. And the most important point, of course, how does the knowledge affect your own actions? Right? And there's a purpose to grammar. To be able to have that, one needs to have this body of knowledge. So there's a great benefit in memorizing, in going ahead. One of the great grammar specialists of the 20th century, Sheikh Abdul Ghani Daqar of Damascus, he wrote this brilliant dictionary of Arabic grammar, معجم قواعد اللغة العربية. But it's sort of upper intermediate, almost advanced level dictionary of Arabic grammar. When I was in Damascus in the late 90s, he was quite elderly and getting a little bit senile. He lived in the same building as Sheikh Adib Kallas. I used to go several times a week to Sheikh Adib. Sheikh Abdul Ghani Daqar used to live on the ground floor. Sheikh Adib lived 2 floors down in the basement, deep in the basement. It's up on the mountain. I used to go after Fajr. Almost every morning, Sheikh Abdul Ghani Daqar would be walking up and down the street. Sheikh Abdul Ghani Daqar's father was one of the greatest ulama of Dimashq of the 20th century. Sheikh Ali Daqar, those of you who have Reliance of the Traveler, it's one of the first biographical entries in the Reliance. So, Sheikh Abdul Ghani Daqar, he mentioned that when he finished studying the matan of the Ajrumiyya, I think with one of the briefest of commentaries, he asked his father, Sheikh Ali Daqar, what do I do next? He said, go study it under so-and-so. So he went study under so-and-so. Completed it. So what do I do next? He said, go study it with so-and-so. I asked him a 4th time. I finished it because Ajrumiyya is short. You can do it, like if you do it daily, you could do it within a month or less. Then he asked, what do I do next? He said, I'll teach it to you. He says, okay, what do I do next? He says, I'll teach it to you again. So he studied just the text 6 times before moving on to something. Because you build on solid foundations. You build on solid foundations. A modern person wants to jump to the highest book, but what do they actually retain? A random set of information from various things that really doesn't fit together. That really doesn't fit together. Okay, if someone who apologizes for the emojis, I really don't mind. And my parents said something, Assalamu alaikum, to my parents. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We'll see you next week. Bidnillahi ta'ala. But if you haven't registered, just register for the class. It's free. You'll have access to the slides, the resources, etc. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.